Hey guys, so I'm going to get back to working on the plane here in a minute, but at first I wanted to say thank you everybody who gave me feedback. In one of the previous videos I had asked if, to start a conversation, and if there was anything that you wanted to know about, if any questions, or just generally me looking for things to talk about, hey, come on and ask. Apparently you guys loved that because I got a lot of feedback, a lot of different questions, and I will get to those as quickly as I can. There are a bunch of them, but by all means, please keep asking. I'm not necessarily taking them in the order that they were received because some of them have been kind of similar, and so I'm kind of grouping them together. And so one of those today, I'd like to talk about bucking bars and the actual gun that you're going to use. So a couple things about the gun. As you know, this is a pneumatic rivet gun. The idea being, of course, you would have a bucking bar, you would have a piece of metal, and it would buck, right? The bucking doesn't really, this does the half of the work, but the bucking bar does more of the work in a weird way. The primary question, though, about that I got was about 2X or 3X. Should you get a 2X bar or a 3X bar, a gun rather? Honestly, I think the only difference between the 2X and the 3X is this distance. Let me get this off here. The 2X is 2 inches long and the 3X is 3 inches long. I think that's it. I don't know that there's any other major difference. Of course, this is the 3-inch part. Everything is just screwed on using this kind of spring. That's the bucking action. Bzzzt. Wrong. Okay, after doing some research, what I found out is the stroke length, which is, between 2X, 3X, all the way up to like 6X, actually does have to do with how hard the gun hits. 2X is considered light duty, 3X is considered medium duty, 6X is considered ludicrous duty. I think on the forums one guy said that he read somewhere that a 6X would punch right through a skin. Don't do that. That'd be bad. So yes, 2X versus 3X, it actually does change how hard the gun hits. Having said that, I still think that a 3X can do everything you need it to do. 2X is perfect for the really small rivets. 3X is good for everything else we can do. You don't want to go any higher than 3X, my research implies. And honestly, I think you can get away with the 3X if you have one of these little regulators on the bottom because it allows you to kind of tone down the air where you need to, if you need to, or you could do it on the regulator itself. I probably should research this stuff before I make the video. Yeah. Then I wouldn't have to shoot these corrections. By the way, there's another correction coming. Thanks. And that's it. I don't know that there's any major difference between 2X or 3X. I don't think one hits harder or anything like that. And if you guys know better, please correct me in the comments down below. But as far as I know, it's just the size of it. I could see though if it were too small, where it would be inconvenient, and if it were too big, it would be inconvenient to use. I have not had a single problem with a 3X. The other question someone asked is, do I need both a 2X and a 3X? No, I don't have a 2X. I only have the 3X. So as far as I know, that's all you need, and that's the only difference. Another person asked me about pressures, what kind of crazy pressures this thing use. Over there I have a standard 100 PSI shop compressor, and you can regulate the compressor, turning that little red knob on there up or down. I think it maxes out as like 120 PSI or whatnot. But I also, on this one, have this little guy down here, which allows you to regulate the pressure that goes in. Again, you can step it up or step it down to make it hit harder or a little softer. And your results may vary. Some people say you want a slightly harder hit so that it does that first clean impact. Some people say you want a slightly softer hit so you kind of sneak up on it. I don't know. I have what works for me, and you will have what works for you. So the next thing is hoses. I just whacked myself on the head with. You can get big, heavy-duty super hoses or these light little ones. And I gotta admit, I've had both, and these light little ones are so much better, simply because they're not big and heavy. There's no leaking or anything like that. In fact, that my big compressor will hold its air for 2 weeks. I'll come out here and I'll flip it on after not being here, and it won't cycle over and start airing it up because it's still full. So I've had no leaking with these light little hoses. As with all hoses though, they kind of curl up on the floor, and so it's real easy to get your feet tangled up in them, so be careful there. I have thought about implementing some kind of overhead system, you know, where it'll like retract up into it, and I've thought about it really hard because I have tripped and, you know, gone sprawling on the ground because of a silly hose. That video might show up in a bloopers reel or something at some point. But hose wise, I would say don't go crazy. Get, you know, you don't have to spend super expensive hoses, or spend a lot of money on your hoses rather. These little jobbies work fine. So bucking bar wise, I have 4 bucking bars, and there are a million bucking bars, right? If you look online and you're trying to figure out which bucking bar you need, you could run the gamut, and there are some that are super expensive and there's some that are super cheap. I have 2 of these foot bars. You only need 1. The reason I have 2 is because when I bought the kit that my gun came with, it actually came with one of these bars, and I didn't know that. So, and then I went and bought another one not knowing that I already had one, and so now I have 2. It's actually come in handy to have 2, just because sometimes I need a paperweight or something that I, you know, need some leverage or something. So having 2 has not been... It's not been worthless, but you don't need to. Absolutely not. I could have done everything without it. And I'll go into more detail on how to use this bucking bar and why it's shaped the way it is. But these are good bucking bars. These work fine. They're heavy, as they should be, and they work really well. The direct question was, could you do the entire plane with this bucking bar? Most of it. Like, you could do 95% of the plane with this bucking bar. And the reason I say 95% is because there are some places where this is going to be too long, or it's going to be really awkward to use. It's just too big. And there are a couple spots in the empennage where you need a really long specialty bucking bar, unless you use pop rivets. Other than that, yeah, you could do most of it with this, I think. The other bucking bar I have is this little guy. 4140 is the number on it. Before I get a bunch of emails telling me rightly that I don't know what I'm talking about, 4140 was actually a designator created by the SAE to describe this particular alloy of steel. All of my steel bucking bars have the 4140 logo on them. I wasn't trying to describe a specific bucking bar. That guy doesn't know anything. It is a strange shaped bar. It's a very specialized bar, and I've never used it. I've literally only used it as something to put another bar on top of. Like, I'll lay it flat and I'll put another bar on top of it just to get some height when I'm doing things solo. So that's really what I use this for. Again, this one's a paperweight. I don't need this bar. I have a feeling, just based on its shape, that this was meant for something very specific, and I don't know what it is. So you don't need one of these, or at least I've not needed one of these yet. The other bucking bar I have is this guy. Now, this is like a $200 hunk of tungsten, and it's heavy. It's actually heavier than this guy. This bucking bar is by far the one I use the most. And when I'm doing the bucking, that high-pitched tink that you hear, the tink, 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 when it's bucking, sounds different than this bar. In fact, I use this bar so much that this one sounds weird to me, and it makes me think I didn't set the rivet correctly. So it's amazing how, you know, something as mundane as how the rivet sounds as you're driving it is a clue or a factor in whether or not you did it right. This bar is the one I've done most of the plane with. The downside to this bar, because it is heavy and because it is slightly smaller, I've dropped it a couple times, and it's very unforgiving. When you drop this sucker, it's going to dent. In fact, it's heavy, so it'll take a chunk out of the concrete. But don't drop it. This is by far the bar that I have used the most. It's the little tungsten 4-inch, yeah, 4-inch and it's got one end of it has a slight angle to it. This is the bar I've used the most by far. Same thing though, could you do the entire plane with this bar? No, because on this bar, this little foot right here actually is incredibly useful. There's been a couple times when I've needed that, and there's no way to get that with this. It's too fat at one end. So I think between these two bars, if you get both of these, you're golden. I think you can do everything with just these. So there's that. Those are the bucking bars. This one was not very expensive, and like I said, it actually came with my 3X kit. And this bar was expensive. This was like a $200 hunk, but you use it a lot. And at the end of the day, like if I get rid of all of my tools because I sell this thing off, I will keep this bucking bar, just because this, I think, is the symbol. As odd as that sounds, this is the symbol of this build. This one hunk of metal, because I've just have had it in my hand so much that this is the piece that I would keep of everything if I had to get rid of everything. So anyways, so that's that. And I'm going to go through and show you how I use these, maybe some tips and tricks on how to actually do some bucking, especially in some blind spaces where you can kind of, you reach around, but you can't actually see, you know, both sides at the same time. There is a lot of working by feel and learning how to line things up so that this doesn't slip around as it bucks, because as it's bucking, it's going to want to move up and down. And you kind of have to learn just by angling the head how to not do that. And then also how to correctly place this against the piece that you're working with, using your fingers on either side to kind of feel whether or not you're flush and you're not cattywampus off one side or the other. Because if you do not line it up, if you're off, you'll end up putting a big dent, and again, very unforgiving. Once you got a dent, you got a dent. It's tough to get rid of them, and you can walk around and see a few dents that I have. So there's that, and I'll try to give you more information here on how I do that. That ending was crap. That ending was absolute crap. I'm terrible at this. Why do you guys watch these videos? So this is what I've been doing for the last couple of days. All these rivets, this is how I've been doing it, and I've been using the rubber tipped front here, head, I'm not sure what you actually call these, on this particular gun to do the work. And I've got the bucking bar in the back. Now technically, according to the instructions, you should be doing back riveting on this, but I just couldn't find conceive of a good way to do that as a single individual. Moreover, I think the results I'm getting are actually just fine, and they look pretty good. So what I specifically wanted to talk about is you have to make sure that you get this placed up against your material, get the angle correct. Some of you might hear a helicopter spinning up in the background. It's very important that when you put the gun against this, that you don't have the angle too oblique, I guess. You know, it needs to be perpendicular to the material that you're working with. Otherwise, what happens is you have travel as you, and I'm not going to key it because I don't want to dent this, but as you key the gun or trigger the gun and you have it at a real oblique angle, it'll actually walk up the material or down the material or left or right. And so keeping that center point is really, really pivotal and important. So not only do you have to concentrate on the position of the bucking bar against the rivet, make sure it's square to the material, you have to make sure the gun is square to the material as well. That's why initially it's much, much easier to actually have two people to doing this, because, well, then you only have one thing to think about at a time. So that's what I've been doing, though, is I've been trying to do all of this by myself and make sure that we keep it square. Don't always do it. There goes that helicopter. Ah! Damn batteries. God, I hate these things. All right, we're back with a fresh battery. Yay! So, as I was saying, with this, if you hold it straight up and down, you'll be okay. And that's what you want to do. You want to hold it straight up and down when you're working on something. And I'm not going to do it on this nail because I don't want to booger up this head, but I'll do it over here on the wood. But if you angle it ever so slightly, or even, you know, over-angling it as I'm doing now, when you pull the trigger, it's going to walk that way. So, for example, yes, that was loud. So, but you can see as when you're placing the rivet gun rather, against whatever the material is, you want to make sure you are as perpendicular as possible, or it will walk in one direction or another. Bucking bars will do the exact same thing. When you're holding your bucking bar, you must make sure to hold it flush to the material and recognize that it will move off of that rivet, which is literally just a little point sticking out from behind, very easily. So I've got the camera set up here so that I can look at one camera, and I've got another one over here so that you guys can see what I'm doing, sort of. I can put my fingers up here and I can feel where the bucking bar is. Now I've got this other bar right here set to elevate this bucking bar just a little bit. And if I move this out, here is the rivet right there. So by feeling the rivet and looking as I poke one end, I can actually kind of see the rivet move on this other side. So that allows me then to bring this bucking bar up, move everything forward, and line everything up. Now I also am on this particular bucking bar, I'm using the curved end a little bit, or not curved, the angled end, so I know I need to lift this ever so slightly to get it flush. So place the gun over the center of the rivet, make sure the bucking bar is in good spots, give it a couple pops, and then go check our work. Looks good. Looks like it all worked out. Typically at this point I would do a whole row of them and then go back with the gauge tester to make sure I didn't under rivet one. Typically you don't over rivet when you're doing this method, for me anyways, because of sort of the awkwardness of how I'm having to do this. I can't put a lot of pressure on this on the bucking bar, so the rivet, if it is done incorrectly, it's underdone, and you just give it a couple more taps and it'll be fine. So there's that. So there you go. I'm gonna keep working in the background because I got a lot of rivets to do, and these videos take a lot of time. But I noticed that a lot of people, so I've had people come out and they've asked me if they can help, and I'm like, yeah, drive some rivets. And you're welcome to come out and drive some rivets too, by the way, please. But I think a lot of people, they have this concern that when they first start bucking or they start working that they don't know what they're doing. Neither did I. If I can do it, you can. But the mistake that I see a lot of people doing is they hold a death grip on the bucking bar and they really try to jam it against the rivet. And you don't have to do that. In fact, I have very little pressure against the rivet, just a little. What's doing the work is the weight. The weight of this bucking bar and that bucking action, because you'll see the bucking. I want to try to find like some slow motion video of bucking so you can really see as the rivet gun hits this, and this kind of bounces away a little and bounces back, and then you'll see the rivet go squish just with each one of those little rivet, or bucks rather. This does, I said earlier, that the bucking bar or the gun does 50%. And this does more. This does the half of the work, but the bucking bar does more of the work. I'm not a mathematician, but I would say the gun probably does 20 or 30%, and this does the majority of the work. The gun does the work of pushing. This does the rebound, which does the setting of the rivet. So good bucking bar placement is important. A good heavy bucking bar is important. You don't have to death grip it and jam it on there, because what happens there when you really jam it on, when the gun coils back to buck, when the gun's doing this number, because it's inside, it's oscillating, right? When it does that, when it pulls back, if you're really pushing hard, you're going to push the rivet out. And then it'll hit. And now you've got this half set, funky, bent rivet. So you don't need to push. Just a gentle placement. And maybe I don't want to say firm, but okay, firm. We'll say firm. Just a firm placement, but you don't have to really push it hard. And that's what I see people doing. People sitting there just really trying to, give a real solid feeling. You don't have to do that. So there's that. That's what I wanted to show you. This video has been a mess. It's been all over the place. Sorry about that. I want to make more of these. And again, thank you everybody for your questions. I have a ton of questions, but I want you guys to keep sending me questions because I group them up and then I can get to them one at a time, and hopefully we can figure this out. As proof, as evidence by the fact that I had to make a couple corrections in this video, and I'm sure I've done other things wrong. I don't know everything. And so if I give you guys the wrong answer, call me on it. Absolutely call me on it, and I'll make a correction video, and I'll thank you for calling me on it. That's that. I'm going to get back to work. I got lots to do. Thank y'all very much for your time, and all my patrons, I really appreciate it. If you guys want to support this channel, if you hit the like and subscribe button over there, I'd really appreciate it. It helps my rankings with Google. And again, if you really want to subscribe, and really want to support me, you can join my Patreon campaign just for as little as $1 a month. That helps support this project and encourages me to continue making these videos and continue having this conversation with you guys. Love you guys a bunch. See you next time. I feel like there was something I was supposed to say and I don't remember what it was. Again, I have to ask, why do you guys watch these videos? I am terrible at this.